All right. Hello, everyone. This is the 19th of May. We're having our May monthly ETHKL meetup. Today, we are lucky to be hosting Rob from Remix. For those of you who don't know, Remix is the OG Ethereum IDE. We'll get more into what they do and for you to ask any questions later on. Our sponsor for the ETHKL meetup is Etherscan. And without further ado, we'll just get Asfar to share the monthly roundup.
Thank you, Harif, and welcome Rob to our meetup. It's really nice to meet you. So yeah, as usual, our monthly roundups. I might have missed a few though, because it's been a crazy month. The first thing that I would like to talk about is the Sequoia testnet is live, and it will be one of the testnet that will be available after the merge. And I think it also happens around the same time where Winkleby is discontinued. I put like a screenshot from Peter here about him feeling a little bit sentimental about deprecating the Winkleby testnet, and also some share as well. So Sepolia testnet is live on Etherscan. So if you are a developer and you wanna test it out, do check it out as well. And our next roundup is so there's this trend going on crypto Twitter, this hashtag L222. And they've been talking about it's going to be like a layer 2 world, and it's going to be like an airdrop season. So I guess some of the big airdrop that have happened the last few weeks is from Hop Protocol and Optimism. So if any of our members here and other listeners that have used these protocols, maybe you guys can check it out. I've also included some links if you want to try to see your luck, try to test your luck whether you could qualify for other airdrops. But of course, don't use it for the airdrop, just use it because I think it's a great onboarding place for people who are outpriced by Ethereum mainnet. So personally, when I want to onboard my friends into crypto, I would just recommend them to just go straight to layer 2. And you might even be rewarded by it. And another big news announcement is Coinbase Pay has launched. So and their first integration is with MetaMask. I haven't actually seen it yet. So it will allow dApps to make it easier for your users to pay or transfer crypto using fiat money. But I believe that you would have to be KYC'd by Coinbase first. And I'm not sure whether that will apply to everyone in the world. But I do remember that there's around 100 million people that have been KYC'd. So I think it's definitely like a big play, and it'll be very interesting to see. And but I think they are very well positioned for this. So if you are a developer, you do have to apply for their Coinbase Pay SDK. So it's not available for public yet. So it'd be interesting to see what you can do with this as well. And so Cloudflare embarks in that tree. So actually, even to this day, I am not quite familiar with which part of the tech stack Cloudflare is. And I think Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I think you shared this news with me. If you don't mind, maybe you can share with us a little bit about what this is about.
Yeah, so Cloudflare is basically the thing that prevents you from getting DDoS, pretty much. So it helps it's one of the major, what do you call it? We call it content delivery network. That's the technical term for it. But essentially, it helps to make sure that your websites can be accessed fast throughout the world. So it's very interesting to see that they're getting into like Web3 networks, and they are openly saying that they want to get into looking into Ethereum and all this other stuff.
All right, thank you, Nick. So next thing is Instagram integrates NFT. I actually found it through my friends who sent me a bunch of DMs. But interestingly though, in one of their main messages, they will not dox your address. So you actually, so if you manage to find an NFT post on Instagram, I think it's only limited to certain creators for now. You cannot actually go to their address, maybe not yet, who knows. And I think there's only like a few selected NFT projects here, but I think you might see like a wider adoption of NFTs on Instagram, and it'll be interesting to see whether they will eventually integrate the marketplaces here and to see which marketplace that they would choose. So yeah, but I have actually seen this NFT post on my timeline yet. And probably like a trigger warning before the next monthly roundup. So it's just impossible to not talk about this. But we're just gonna touch like a little bit about it. So yeah, so there's a big depack that happened with with UST, and that cascaded to like a Luna's collapse. I think around $100 billion was lost in a day. I think I might be wrong. I know that there are a lot of my friends also have been affected by this, and if you are affected by it, I hope you stay strong. There are other things in life other than just crypto. You can go out, talk to your friends, play sports, do other things. But yeah, if you are affected by it, I hope you are well. And I think now the conversation around how will Terra recover this project, and there have been a bunch of proposals that has come up. I haven't personally followed much, but I think it'd be interesting to see whether this community will go next, because they definitely have a lot of builders in this community. And last but not least, our local news. So surprisingly, I definitely did not expect this. So KFC launched their NFT project. So if you are a holder, you will actually get a 20 ringgit off monthly for a year. Yeah, because I checked. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And the way that they going to reach out to you is very interesting. They will actually use block scan chat to actually reach out to the NFT holders. So I think whoever pitched and executed this NFT campaign are definitely deep in the crypto rabbit hole to figure out the whole thing. So if there's any KFC NFT holders here, you can ping me, maybe we can share some discounts. Yep, so I think that's all I have. Back to you, Harry.
All right, thanks Asfar. So next we will have Nicholas, and I think Asfar supporting, just to share some learning, some experiences from joining Devconnect in Amsterdam last month. Nick, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah, I need to share my screen, which we didn't test earlier actually. Okay, can everyone see my, oops, let me throw it in presentation mode.
Yep, you can see the Devconnect inspired title.
Yes, it is. Okay, so anyone who went to Devconnect, feel free to join me in the picture slideshow later on. Okay, so Devconnect is an event that is the lead up to DevCon. So essentially, it's pretty much like ETHKL, where you meet up with all the most OG people in Ethereum, such as Remix. Remix was there. We met some people there. Lots and lots of the Ethereum Foundation people, projects such as Polygon, what do you call it? Layer 2s like Arbitrum, Optimism were all there. So it was for 1 week in Amsterdam, Netherlands. We flew there, and I think we only stayed for the first week. So we actually missed a little bit of the events that happened in the following week. So one of the most interesting things that I found about this event is that they had a decentralized event format. So let me show you how that kind of looked like. Can you see if I switch tabs? Can everyone see?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So something very interesting was that there were many concurrent events happening the same day. So for example, in the first day, there was ETH Day, and at the very same time, there was Web3 UX conference, DAO gatherings, and all that. So what this essentially means was that it's not possible for you to attend every single event during Devconnect. So that means that between all these days, all these events on the same day, you have to pretty much prioritize what you want to actually learn and what you want to, the people you want to meet out of Devconnect. So I feel that was good, because instead of having a 1,000 plus event, 1,000 plus person meetup, you can keep it pretty small until, let's say, 200, 300 people in a space, and it's very easy to go about meeting other people. Yeah, so some of the other events that we got to attend was Layer 2, which was all the events like Optimism, Arbitrum, Boba. There's a lot of names I'm gonna miss. And then Build Space, we met them as well. Okay, there's actually a lot of it, so I don't think I'll be able to cover every single one of these events. But yeah, this was the format of Devconnect, and I would say even within ourselves, we could attend at a maximum 2 events per day. So let's say on Thursday, let's say you would be able to attend Gitcoin's meetup, and then run off somewhere to, let's say, attend Starknet's bootcamp. That's pretty much it. So you wouldn't, it keeps groups very, very small for you to be able to meet everyone and know them well. So coming back to my slides, we just have a little bit of a photo slideshow here. So everyone who went, feel free to join in. The first picture is we took bikes pretty much to every location in the city. So besides having a decentralized event schedule, the location of the events were also in very different places in the city. So one could be at this building, one could be at a co-work space, one could be across the river, you have to take a ferry. And something cool that we really appreciate was that they provided bikes so we could go around very, very easily. The second event here in the middle is, I think it was ETH Day, right? Should be. Yeah. So ETH Day was this specific one. I think it's Tim Bako from the Ethereum Foundation. It should be him. I can't see at this point. But yeah, the first event that we attended was ETH Day, and it was a very, very big roundup of the most major things happening in Ethereum. The merge, EIP 159. A very big topic was gas prices, and yeah. And something good from ETH Day was that we got to make a small presentation. There's Harif in the middle, and we presented a little bit on the newest things coming to Etherscan. Next, we have, next. So next we have the picture on the left was L2Beat. So L2Beat was the kind of the roundup of all the latest layer 2 people and what they're up to. The people we met were Boba, Starkware, is that the correct name? Yeah. And also Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon. And they were presenting a lot of the latest developments in layer 2, like sharding and all, lots and lots of different things there. The picture on the right is the venue. So this was the venue that I think was across the river. Oh no, it was not. This one was just a different location. But this was how it looked like on the outside. Next is the amazing co-work space. So one thing we really appreciated about Devconnect was that we had a very, very big co-work space to meet people that were not in the events or just hang out and chill. And on the third day, they even had a hackathon, which I think some of us attended. And we were able to spend time together. The food was amazing there. And I think that's Harit in the middle. Yeah. So the one on the right is a similar photo that's inside. And I think these photos just can't justify how big the place was. But yeah, it was very, very much appreciated from the Devconnect team. Next is on the left is, this should be, if I'm not mistaken, economics. If I'm not mistaken. But I can't see, there's usually the banner on the right. So economics was also held by the EF. So they also had presentations on, oh, by the way, economics is not related, it's not discussing about the price of Ethereum, but it's more of a discussion on how do you efficiently reward people who are building in the Ethereum space, while at the same time maintaining like open source code and all that. On the right was another event happening concurrently, which was Amsterdam. I think we were not supposed to be there, but we still checked it out anyway. All right, on the left is Gitcoin. So I'm sure many of us are familiar, and some of us here even fund projects with Gitcoin. They had an amazing shelling day where they invited the biggest projects to share what they've been up to, and some of them even share how they were using Gitcoin's funds and proposing the best ways to get funding for your projects. On the right, this is definitely economics because I see the logo there. So it's a similar one to the previous slide. This I can't, oh, sorry, go back. I can't be sure now what project that is part of. Sorry, guys. Okay. Next was one of my favorites, which is MEV Day. I think that was very, very amazing. They had a very dark stage, so which kind of emulated the dark forest concept of MEV in general. And the person presenting here is Georgios from, what do you call it, Paradigm Research. He was the one who does a lot of like MEV adventures with like Sam CZ-san and all that. Very, very cool to meet him in person. And MEV Day was even like very mysterious in the sense that some people who were even there, they didn't even come into the conference hall. So like they presented from somewhere else, and then they were actually there in person. You just didn't know that they were there. So that was very, very cool. Yeah, MEV Day was a roundup of the latest things happening in MEV, such as one of the hot topics were cross-chain MEV, the state of MEV, how much is being extracted, and how it's happening on newer chains and all that. I think we might have an MEV team meet up the next round if Harit gets it. Okay, and then on the right is just some more general photos of the city of Amsterdam in general. It was amazing, and this is, I think, the central station. So very, very cool place. Yeah, this is more just some general photos from the city. Very, very amazing place. If you have time, or if there ever is another Devconnect, another event there, feel free to go about it. So for everyone else who didn't get to attend the event in person, we left you a little bit of goodies, which is a link here. I'm gonna paste it. Oh, I need to go out. I'm gonna paste it in the chat. So this is essentially the recordings and notes from every single event, or at least most of the events that happen in Devconnect. So let's say you did not get to attend Devconnect events such as MEV Day, L2Beat, all in person, but there is a recording for pretty much every single session there was there. Let me open the link actually. There is at least, I would say, 100 hours of recordings here. So I would advise that the best way to go about learning this and reviewing it is to choose a topic that you're into, and then you can fully review them in depth, because if you were to cover everything, it would get very overwhelming because there's a lot of topics. A lot of them get very technical, and it packs a lot of information in every single one of these events. Does anyone from Devconnect want to add on anything?
Yeah, so I think we took a bit longer than planned. So if any one person want to share like 1 or 2 lines, we can. Otherwise, I think we need to move on.
Okay, cool. Chichuan says it's time for DevCon. Yep, DevCon is happening in Bogota this year in October. If anyone is going, that'll be fun.
Yep. And on that note, we cannot emphasis on might, no guarantees, but we might be able to get a couple slots from grants or sponsorships for people from the EKL community to just go to Devconnect, so to Devcon. So yeah, if we'll kind of confirm that closer to October. But yeah, keep an eye out on that, and remain active and contribute to the community. All right, so thanks, Nick, for that. And I think we've kept Rob waiting for a while already. Thanks for your patience, Rob. And I am going to unmute you. And yep, you can share your screen.
See, okay. And how long do I have like till you go till 9 o'clock or?
So roughly like half an hour for the presentation, half an hour for the chat, but we're flexible.
Okay. Let's see. So how's it gonna work? Do you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna stroll you through some basic operations in Remix and show you some tricks. I didn't put the S there on the tricks, but let's see. Here. Oops, here we go. So going to go over getting started and introducing the interface, loading plugins, compiling, deploying to different networks, transaction receipts, and then some other parts like learning and where to get help, how to collaborate, importing code from other projects, and checking out the debugger and a few other basic plugins. and how to deploy to multiple chains. And also some basic understanding of Remix. In fact, so maybe I'll jump right into Remix itself. Here, whoops. Uh-oh. Gotta move that thing. How do I collapse the hide video panel? Is that that? Oh, you still see me? I mean, hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So when you come to Remix, actually, when you come to Remix, you're probably in the dark theme. So, and actually, if my screen, if you can't read things on off my screen, I can make it larger like that, if that is easier to see. But anyway, you probably see it in the dark mode. So first I'll introduce you to themes, which are in the settings panel, which are down here. And but you'll come here, this is the home tab. And these are featured plugins. These are over here are links to our Medium blog and our Twitter feed, which is important for when our next releases are happening and other kind of announcements that we do. So it's good to subscribe to both of those. And there's some, you can load files or down here. There are links to our chat and our Gitter and documentation. But mostly you'll see this thing called workspaces in the file explorer. So here, I'll make a new workspace. And here's where you would name it today's workspace. And here's some default files. And so the contracts go here, just kind of test files and scripts are here. And dependencies, when you compile a file, it'll go out and grab your dependencies and stick them in the .deps folder. And then to create a new workspace, it's up here. Then to create a new file, it's down here. And when you click on one of these files, it opens up here. These are kind of default files, so you can, if you don't know Solidity, you can start with these files to start understanding the general processes. And also, these kind of comments in here are called NatSpec. And you can use these to communicate messages to other developers on your project, also to users. It's important to fill out your NatSpec comments. And you can learn more about NatSpec on the Solidity documentation site. And so you take a file and then you can compile it over here in the compiler, by clicking that. You can also click on auto compile so that every time you type a letter, it'll compile it, but sometimes that can get annoying. But if you're back here and you do a Control S, it will also compile it. And also, like if you add something here that's not going to work and you compile it, you'll get an error. And if you click the error, it'll tell you that this line's screwed up, but actually it's because of this line has that little screw up there. And then when you want to deploy, let's do it again. So we'll compile it with a Control S. And then here you can publish your data on IPFS or Swarm, get your compilation details and the links to the ABI, which is important if you want making your DApp. You can just get that and it'll copy the ABI from the compiled contract. And then when you go to the deploy and run, here the environment section is what chain you're deploying it to. So if you click that, there's all these different chains, but injected Web3 means MetaMask. It's not totally clear, but that's what it means. And Web3 provider would be like if you have a local node running, you'd use that. And hard hat provider is basically the same thing, but you're deploying to the hard hat chain. And Ganache is if you got Ganache. And you can connect with Wallet Connect, which is really cool, so that you can approve transactions on telephone. You have to, I think that probably automatically loads the Wallet Connect plugin. Let's see if it does. Yeah. So you need to put your Infura ID in there, and then you get the normal Wallet Connect interface. So this is called a main panel plugin because it's in the main panel where the editor is. Whoop. Come on, go away. Okay, it's not going to go away. And then this is the side panel, and this is the icons panel. Let's see, go back to this one. So we want to deploy to just the local chain, which is in the browser. So when you deploy there, you don't have to approve any transactions. It just goes through because it's kind of, you know, a simplified blockchain. And here's all the accounts. And so having done this, when we open up the deployed instance over here, you can see the two functions here. Also, if you want to grab the address, you copy the address here, and that will copy the address if you want to use that address for something else. Let's see. And so right now, because this is a non-payable function, but it costs money to because it's saving the new address on the chain, it will cost. So that's why it's in orange. But if we make it into a payable function, it'll be red, like change owner, public, payable. Oops. And then if we go back to, let's see, compiling it by Control S, or just going back here, compile it, and then we deploy it again. It's below each successive deployment happens, or instance happens below. So we close this one and open this one, and now this is red because this is payable. And then to add, when you do a transaction with a payable function, you add the value up here, not down here. So you wanted to send like a 55 way, and we're going to change the owner, so we'll give it a new owner, and we'll copy the owner, go back here, and then put the new owner's address, but we have 55 way is the amount we're sending with it. And then when you click that, you get this transaction receipt down here. Here, we'll drag this up. And this is the transaction receipt. And you can see this transaction hash. It's going to the contract. And you can see that that the value here is 55 way. It's important to be able to see what's going on in the transaction receipt. And here is actually how you get right to the debugger. Maybe I'll just show you quickly the debugger now. So you click that, and it has the transaction that we're debugging, and it goes right to that part of the transaction. And these are you're stepping through the different opcodes when you're going through the step. And this is to jump to the next breakpoint when you put a breakpoint somewhere here. So it's kind of like basic, debugger operations. The important things to know is like this. Here, the solidity state is the current owner, and since I changed it, I think we'll see the solidity local opening up. Yeah, so the local just got filled up here. That's the new owner. Okay, so where should we go to next? Let's see. So there's a search. That's the new feature in Remix now. So you can search all your files in your control panel. And also, when you come to Remix here, let's close all this stuff. To deactivate plugins, you can just right-click on them to deactivate. So when you come to Remix, maybe for the first time, you just see these 3 plugins. And if you click the Solidity button here, you'll get a few more, because this is for the basic Solidity environment. It's more than just a plugin. These are featured plugins, so they're just going to load one at a time. Let's see. So, oh yeah. So the plugin manager is very important to know about too. So this is where all the plugins are listed. All the ones that are activated are on top, and then the ones that you have yet to activate are down here. So if you don't know, like, so suppose you're on the Solidity compiler and you want to know like what something is over here, you can click that and you'll bounce to our documentation page. And this is the list of all the documentation. So whenever you're, oops, let's see, how does this work? I bounced out a Remix. Maybe it's over here. Wow, that's funny. I never did that. Let's see. That should be here or over here. I don't know how to change tabs when it's full size. Okay. So all those icons and all the panels bounce you right to the documentation. And here's a unit static analysis and unit testing. If anyone does static analysis with Slither, we can now, if you have Slither running locally, you can run Slither through Remix as well. So let's go back to the slide deck for a minute. So I guess, oh yeah, so transaction receipt verifying. Let's go back to that. I'll show you. There's a couple ways of verifying. One is when you publish on IPFS, when you compile a contract, like this one, and if we're connected to a testnet, I guess not Rinkeby anymore. Well, you publish it here. And then there's a service called Sourcify, which is going to go through all the main testnets and mainnet and verify contracts that are deployed and have their metadata and source files on IPFS. So it's like a kind of passive kind of contract verification. So just by clicking publish on IPFS, and if you publish and if you deploy to some public network, your contract will get verified passively on Sourcify. But you could also do it actively by using the Sourcify plugin here or the Etherscan plugin. There. And so, you have to enter your API key, and then you can get the interface. And in Sourcify, you click the verifier key button here, and then put the contract address, and you have to choose, of course, the right network. Let's see, going back to, let's go into the slides a little bit, see what I put here. So often you have to learn things fast and fake it till you make it. So there's this plugin called Learneth. Here, I'm just going to do this live. Let's go to Learneth. So typing up here, Learneth, and we'll activate it. So the cool thing here is some new courses we put in, like the Solidity beginner course. And it's taking, if you guys know Solidity by example, the that site. Most of these are examples taken from there. And so you get a contract that loads automatically here that's associated with this this lesson. And then it gives you an assignment, and then it'll check your answer. If you check your, you can get the right answer. So this is the correct answer. And then yeah, and then you can check your answer. If you go back to the one that's not right, and you can do it because we did nothing, it's gonna check it and it's gonna show you an error. But the cool thing, so going back here to learn if the Solidity beginner class, the ERC20 class, the NFT course, and the auction are the new, and they're all using this testing feature so that they'll test your work one step at a time. Let's see. So one really important thing in Remix is understanding that it's not like Google Docs. So there's not like a server saving your files. It's all in. So it's important to know that the browser, because we're using IndexedDB, a very large amount of storage capacity, but it can crash and then you lose your work. So either you should use RemixD, which is a daemon running on your hard drive, or you and then you connect RemixD to a file on your hard drive. I mean, connect Remix, the website, to a file on your hard drive, or you use dgit, where you can save to GitHub. Here. Also, if anyone has any questions, I can't see the chat, but people can just interrupt me too as I rabbit along. What are we talking about?
We'll ask you questions afterwards, so don't worry about that part.
Okay. So here, I'll just load up dgit. Actually, it might be a little bit easier in the slides. Here, wait. So if we go to, so that's probably connecting to, that's how you connect to RemixD, is in the workspaces, you pull down. If you use connect to localhost, you'll get this modal that gives you the instructions about how to connect, how to get RemixD running locally. And you have to, it's a package from NPM. So you download that package and then you run it. And then in that command here, you specify the path to the folder you want to share. And then you just run that, and then you can have Remix running on your, connecting to your file system. And then you, of course, you use get for version control locally. But if you're using dgit, you get this panel. And then you can, once you put in your GitHub access token, you can clone a directory. And then, so you can just go around and sample people's directories and get them into Remix very quickly. And you can push and pull, of course, to your own repo, and then, share and collaborate that way. What else is here? Yeah, so this is pulling in a grid mix, which is and when you create when you pull in when you clone a repo, it makes its own workspace over here. And the name here isn't so great, but you could go in and you could change the name of the workspace so you could identify it a bit better. So let's, whoops, go back here. Oops. To these, just a minute. Oh yeah, and there's also a diff here, so that as you're making changes, you can see the diff, which is very important and cool. Oh, get this out of here. And then you can make it just very easily. You know, if you have trouble with something on your computer, on a file in Remix, and you want to ask someone for help, you just make a gist by right-clicking, and you can publish the folder to a gist, or you can publish a single file to a gist, and then just give the person that URL, and they can take a look at that file. And there's for explaining your work to others, there's a NatSpec and ETHDoc. So you can explain your work in the NatSpec comments, and then using this plugin called ETHDoc, you can generate a documentation of the contract. Okay, and so the other thing to note is, like, on the homepage, these are for importing files you want to interact with, not for dependencies. And when you want to load a dependency, you do that from the file just using the import statement. And it's gonna, if it's on npm, it's gonna Remix will go out to unpackage, which is a service site, and it's gonna grab the package from npm and install it in Remix. So you don't. So that's the way to get your the dependencies come in automatically, or if they're local, you just put the path for the local dependency. So you should all know, especially beginners, about this Open Zeppelin wizard. And so if you just want to take a look at Open Zeppelin's coin contracts, you can it's a kind of no code or low code way of deploying a coin. But you can, when you click the Open in Remix button, it brings it into a Remix in this workspace called Code Sample. And then from here, you could just compile it, and it's going to grab these contracts from unpackage. So, and it's going to put them in the dependencies folder. And then you can start playing with start learning how to use these contracts. You can, if you're working with hard hat devs, there's interoperability between Remix and hard hat, and Remix and Truffle. So you can choose, how to compile, to add the config file. When you enable this, it'll enable the config file that will make it readable to hard hat. So you can go between the two. And then you can, of course, deploy to the hard hat chain. This you can also do this with Truffle now. What else we got here? The debugger. So we've been through this already, and we've been through. Oh yeah. So the cool thing here is I'm gonna just grab this transaction hash, which I just grabbed this from Etherscan yesterday, and it's a transaction hash of a verified contract. So then when I go to Remix, when I go to, whoops, come on. When I go to Remix and I go to the debugger, which is not up here yet. So I get this, I think it's on mainnet. So I got to switch to mainnet. So I'm going to go to injected Web3. And then I got to go to MetaMask, which, here. I guess we're gonna have to, that's weird. I can't see it this way. Oh, because it's at the top of the browser. Come on.
Make sure you don't dox any important wallets.
Say what?
Make sure you don't dox any of your important wallets to us.
Yeah, ooh, true. So now it's in the mainnet, but what are we gonna do? We're gonna go to debugger, and we're gonna stop this. We're gonna go over here, and we're gonna start debugging, and it's gonna pull this. Oh, maybe it's already in here. Anyway, it should pull it in from Etherscan. And I think it's not right now because I think this has already got pulled in. Well, I think it's not so important. You guys should play with it. It's really cool because it'll check, first it'll check Sourceify for a deployed, for the verified contract to see if it's there. And if it's there, then the contract will come up here. And I think as you scroll around here, well, this is going to work. It should work. Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to demo that well today. But check it out. It's an interesting feature. And back to the presentation. Oh yeah, and we have console log, which is the hard hat feature, and you can see that in the default contracts now. Which is here in some of the, in this one anyway, there's this import console, hard hat console, and then you could put console logs here, and then your where's the this was gonna, it's gonna, you can have a console log every time you deploy it. So that's good for you know, understanding what's going on in your contract. And then back to here. So deploying to L2s is really simple in Remix because you're just yeah, just go back to this. You know, you select the public testnet in, or the public network in MetaMask. So all that stuff happens in MetaMask. So it's pretty simple. And then to get onto Optimism, this is just showing how you get it. You can, or for the optimistic testnet, you got to, there's a bridge from the Coven to Optimism. And then you just deploy there as soon as you get some optimistic Coven. I think that's it. I mean, we can go on to questions now.
Right. Thanks, Rob. I think a lot of stuff there. We probably have to check the recording later for some of the tricks that you've shared. So yeah, we have about roughly half an hour left in the meetup. And generally what we do is we ask questions, whether on your presentation or just in general about Remix. But I always like to front run any of the questions that the others have asked. Usually, I'd like to ask you to share a little bit about kind of your personal journey, how you entered into Ethereum, and then maybe the story of Remix and how it got started.
let's see. Well, my background's architecture, but soon after architecture school, I wasn't getting much chance to design anything in architecture offices because I could use AutoCAD. So I was getting annoyed, and then I started making websites and programming to pay the rent. So I was basically like a Web 2 developer that became Web 3 developer. So that was, and some long lost friends from college introduced me to Ethereum. And Remix itself started, let's see, I mean, it kind of grew, it was part of the Solidity team. It was called Browser Solidity at the very beginning. And then I guess around 2017, it became its own team. And so it was actually at the very beginning, it was just thought of for testing contracts on very quickly. But then we started realizing like, actually people are actually using this to deploy to mainnet. And the tool has been kind of like, you know, it's interesting because it's used by experienced developers for production, but also beginners. So it has this weird bifurcated audience. And you know, some people are using it just because they like to use a GUI, and others go between Remix and other tools. And there's also we were venturing into a Remix VSCode extension, and there's also Remix Desktop. So there's ways of using kind of different flavors of Remix, but those are getting kind of further developed as we go.
But for those who may not be aware, like why create a web IDE for Solidity back then? Like why not use your VS codes and things like that?
Well, on one hand, there's no setup, and also there's the buttons to push, so it's very visual, and especially for debugging, it's very helpful. So I mean, the fact that there's no setup, or that it works on Windows, because setting up, you know, some frameworks on Windows can be tricky. It gets people going much faster than they ordinarily would just to get right into the Solidity code. You know, there's some, as Remix is developed, you know, the IDE just working in VS Code is what people are normally working in. So, you know, just staying in VS Code has certain advantages, definitely. And getting the online IDE to be as good as VS Code may be an impossible task, you know. So, but there are other advantages to using it. But you know, there's a kind of trade-off.
Yeah. Okay. So just one last thing before I jump to a couple of Shiranjit's questions. Kind of like at a high level, what is the kind of business model, if any, of Remix and org structure? How is it kind of organized as?
Well, I mean, we're a team of about 7 of us. We're founded by the foundation, so it's not like there's a business model in that sense of trying to bring in revenue. But you know, we need to stay current with what's going on and keep the tool in good shape. And we're always adding new plugins. You know, so like there's a StarkNet plugin, so people can compile Cairo contracts. And you can deploy to other chains from Remix, and there's a couple different compilers. And also like we had a plugin for Optimism, and we were going to do one for Arbitrum, but now it's so seamless we didn't even need it. You just manage everything in MetaMask. Oh, there's this other plugin that I wanted to, which is going to be developing, where you can have you can deploy a contract with the same address on multiple chains. You have to deploy them one at a time, but if you use the same salt, it will deploy, using the same address. So it's kind of cool for development.
Cool. Okay, so before I miss Sharon's questions, I'm going to ask you here. And just note, anyone who wants to ask questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Or if you'd like, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you for you to ask your question verbally as well. So Chiranjit's first question, I think, was, could you explain runs for optimization?
Not very well. There's a link in Remix. Wait, let me see if I can find it. To I think it's in optimization runs. If you go, let's see, where's that? I think it's in the Solidity compiler. Where is this? You know what? I'm gonna make this either there's a link on the Solidity site about optimization runs on what's the site? It's called it's not Solidity by example, just Solidity language. Read the docs.
But I think we can try and look for it afterwards.
Yeah.
Or if you find it, you can share it and we can share it in.
Yeah, there should have been a link. I'm gonna make a note because I'm updating the documentation a lot these days, and that's something that needs to get explained. But basically, it depends on what your contract is doing. The number of runs can be you can optimize something too much basically, and then its functionality breaks down. And so it depends what you're doing. So you have to find that balance between the functionality of what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to be able to explain it well. So check that doc.
All right, thanks. So, and then the other question was, you shared some, but are there any other hidden optimizations or tips on Remix, such as like any super shortcuts or cool features?
Well, when you're, a basic understanding of gas can be done by in the transaction receipt. It shows you how much gas is used in that. But there's also a plugin called Gas Profiler, and it will show you the gas, and it will show you the gas usage per line of a transaction. So that's cool. We did some tweets recently about the shortcuts, like I believe Control S is to compile, Control. There's this new feature called compile and run, where you can have a script running, and so the script is really cool for setting the state of the contract. And so you want to write a few lines and then make sure that the contract is test that part of the contract, but often you'd have to keep pressing buttons to get it to that state. So with a script, you can push one button and it will compile it, and then it'll run the script, and then you can see how it worked, and then write a few more lines of code and just click that. So I believe that the key binding for compile and run is Control F, but what else? I forget there are 4 key bindings. And there was a tweet recently. So if you checked our recent tweets from 3 or 4 days ago, there'll be that.
All right. So are there any kind of setups that you've heard about or you use yourself, any sort of integrations that you generally use when you're deploying a contract?
You mean with Remix and other tools? Or?
Yeah. What other integrations inside Remix that you use in your own developer experience?
No, I think. I mean, there are different plugins I like to use. Yeah, I mean, I like the unit testing plugin. I like unit testing in Solidity just because it's, I mean, it's a little bit, it takes a little bit to get the hang of it, more than using Mocha tests, which is a kind of new thing in Remix now that you can use JavaScript testing inside a Remix. But you can, but the kind of the basic one is using Solidity tests. And so just it's kind of more pure to do the testing in Solidity.
Okay. Then let's see.
And actually, on occasion, I have used the Tenderly plugin to just do some Tenderly analysis there.
So
Oh, and the other one, which I'm trying to get to, I want to learn this, but I haven't yet, is there's a ZK Snarks plugin called Socrates. And so it's kind of getting your hands or dirty with understanding the concepts there.
yeah, I think ZK is a whole new world for a lot of us.
Yeah.
TC asked, what are some common mistakes that developers usually make when they're writing smart contracts and ways to avoid them? I think it's a very broad question, but yeah, you can give some of your favorites.
Let's see if I can get Remix up. Just a second. Basically, like in the here, I'm just going to get a new Remix window up. When you deploy a contract, let's see. I just it's not going to be that interesting. I'm not sharing my screen, but here maybe I'll share it briefly. So like you got this contract and you're gonna compile it. And then when you go to deploy it right now, it shows two contracts here. And sometimes like if you, especially like if you import something from OpenZeppelin, here, maybe if I go over here, or you, maybe today's, yeah, I think this has it. It doesn't. Oh, well, okay. If you're here and your contract's not compiling, it might be because, oops, we lost the compilation. Oh yeah, so you come here, your contract's gone because there's nothing compiled. So you got to get a contract up here. Oh, it's good because I switched workspaces. I switched workspaces, everything disappeared. So that's something. Actually, one way is to find out what people usually do is just watch me bumble around here. And then, but you have to make sure the contract here is the correct one. That's a common one. Another common one is like when you're trying to access a deployed contract and you put the contract's address here, you still need to have the contract's ABI and you need to be connected to the right network. So if you have the deployed contract's ABI, you don't need to bring in the source code. You can just access it with the add address. But if you don't have the ABI, you're out of luck for using the add address. Those are two common ones in the deploy and run. So often people get an add a gas error, and that can be due to something in your code that's not correct. So if you have an out of gas error, you should check your code because it may be just throwing this out of gas error because I don't know why, but it should be, but there's a problem in the code. Those are kind of the classic ones.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Chichuan asks a question on any plans to support SIRCOM. And maybe I can generalize that also to just like how does Remix approach the idea of supporting other languages out there?
Well, there's Viper. There's a Viper plugin already. It's just I don't know about SIRCOM. I mean, I assume or I should say I've just started hearing about it is another way to put it. So if it's something that people are interested in, we can look about getting a plugin made for that. You know, we're always looking for new plugins and new plugin developers. And if there's a team that wants to make a plugin for Remix, it's pretty straightforward, and we may be able to, you know, fund you for that development process. Or if you want to push it, you know, I can push that in our, you know, in our team chats.
But because you mentioned like you know, you support Cairo, and you started out as like from the Solidity team. So is there any kind of guide that you use to decide which to kind of like look into and support, or is it just based on kind of the general rough feedback that you hear from the community?
Yeah, it's based on that. I mean, most people are using Solidity, but it's important that Remix works with other languages. But right now, the Cairo plugin, it's a kind of early stage of its development. So I think the next iteration of it will be much better. What else? But yeah, it would be good if we get other compilers in here.
Cool. And related to that, like, how do you see these other kind of like EVM forks that are coming up? Like the different flavors of ZK EVM. I think there's like optimistic rollups generally like change their EVMs a little bit. Does that affect Remix at all?
At the moment, no. Because in our discussions with Arbitrum and Metis and Optimism, it's the same Solidity code. Their flavor of it doesn't affect Remix. If it does, then maybe there will be a different compiler.
And any of the ZK EVMs kind of discussed with you yet?
Well, I mean, there's Darknet, and it's a different language, so
yeah.
But other than that, no. I mean, I guess to the extent that Arbitrum is bridging it, but that one's seamless at the moment. So
yeah. Okay. Without being like political about it, I guess, but I do want to ask, like, what are your thoughts on all these sort of the mushrooming of these different EVM chains out there? In one way, that's like a lot of different users of Remix potentially. But are there any issues, challenges that you face when sort of different EVM chains come up and people create dApps on top of these chains?
No, actually, it's funny from our side. It's like we see like where people are deploying. It's like, oh, I didn't know people were deploying to that chain, or like it's very surprising when we look at our stats.
Are the stats public by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay. Where can we find that?
They're on the Matamo, but I made a blog post. I mean, the easiest one to read is a blog post I did in November, and then but they're public on, and I think that it should be in it's matamo.ethereum.org, I think. But if you're in wait, so you're in Remix and you go to settings, and there's part about Matamo, and oh yeah, there's a link to the Medium article, and there's a link to Matamo. But in the Medium article, there's a link to the stat site on Ethereum. So if you go to the settings in Remix, you'll see the link to article about Matamo analytics.
So that's very interesting. I'm imagining maybe one or two degens here, like even kind of using that to inform them of what chain to look into.
Ah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, although things can always be gamed.
But
yeah.
still, I mean, I'm due to write another post about how people are using Remix, and maybe I'll definitely include that stat about numbers of people. But it's interesting. It's about 30,000 people a day using Remix.
Do you have any kind of like benchmarks that you're able to compare that with? Like, I know, number of devs using some other framework or something else out there?
Not off the top of my head. I might have put that in that article, or the total number of Solidity devs out there. There's kind of rough estimates of that. I think but I mean, the use case is a little bit different because most, everyone's using Remix to learn on. Production, it's a much smaller portion.
Yeah. And I think that's still very far away from I think Joe Lubin's was it 5 million estimate. But anyway,
I think it was about 100,000.
To be honest, I can't remember. It was a very large number.
Yeah. I mean, no, not his number, but the number of total number of actual devs.
Yeah. So 30,000 out of 100,000, even with regards to it being a beginner kind of platform, that's still a substantial amount.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and TC here, I think, asked a follow-up question to an earlier one. Do you think that smart contract audits today are an essential process before any public release of contracts, given there are all these DeFi hacks and exploits that have been happening?
Yes.
I
mean, it's a good business to get in. Auditing, everyone needs it.
I was gonna say, like,
are
there any auditors that you can recommend, just because there is a very like a big lack of supply of them at the moment?
I mean, at this Remix event in Amsterdam, there's a group from graduates of University of British Columbia. They're called Verilog. I mean, there's ones I know offhand, just because I'm kind of friends with them. But so you should maybe ask them. But beyond that, I don't have any recommendations really, because I don't tend to run into too many auditors in my job. So
yeah. There are sort of very rare find right now, at least the good ones.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's the big ones like Open Zeppelin, or
but those who probably cost you quite a lot and are probably hard to get.
Yeah, and also there's a delay of a few months before they get to it.
All right. Then kind of you mentioned, you're not a for-profit, and people like VSCode is already out there and a lot of people are using it. Have you thought about like what would be Remix's position compared to like other online IDEs that are already there or are coming up? Like one major example is Replit. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but like, they're from the Web 2 world and they've like entered the Web 3 world. So any thoughts on that front?
I don't even know about them.
Oh.
Actually, what are they called?
Like yeah, Johan just put them in the chat. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, the other thing is that Remix is, it's open source, so a few projects have forked our code for their own uses, kind of, which is sometimes fine and sometimes whatever.
It's
open source, so what do you expect?
Yeah, that's the decentralized world.
Yeah.
Right, and yeah, so coming up to the last 10 minutes of the meetup. If anyone has any questions, any more questions, feel free to ask. And I also just want to ask, like, kind of like going forward, what is the future plan for Remix? Like both, I guess, on the financial side, like is it getting grants from the EF, and also on the product side, like what direction do you want to take Remix towards?
I mean, it's an internal EF team, so doesn't it, I guess, I mean, the funding mechanism is we have to prove ourselves each year for the funding, and I assume it's going to stay inside the foundation, but I guess theoretically it could get moved outside. In terms of its direction, I mean, the other things that we might start developing is because we have Remix Desktop and we have Remix, the VSCode extension, and we're in the talks in the next few days about how to integrate those so that maybe you're going to be coding. You could, if you want to use in the desktop environment, you could code using VSCode and then move to the desktop just for deployment and or maybe compile, and it's easy enough to compile in VSCode, but you could deploy with using Remix Desktop and using the other Remix tools inside of Remix Desktop. Remix Desktop is an Electron app, and so and it's using all the same plugins as Remix. It's just operating off your desktop, and so so that's like kind of getting the desktop Remix experience going is one of the next. I mean, we have it going, but we want to refine it because we kind of want to try to see if we can get these two flavors of Remix Desktop and Remix, the VS Code extension, to be working more together. And have, and the other thing is like there's you know, tools out there like Foundry has Solidity unit tests, and you know, like if there are unit tests, if everyone's going to be using those Solidity unit tests and not ours, maybe we should just use theirs. Or, you know, maybe there's a use case for our unit tests, but make it simple for people to use theirs inside of Remix, or if not, a way to, you know, bridge people using Remix, but be able to test outside of it and back in. So there's kind of like interoperability issues that are need to get refined as new tools come up.
Cool. TC has another question, and feel free to answer or not answer as much as you'd like. The question is, given Ethereum's scalability problems, do you think that layer 2 as an approach could finally be the ultimate solution to resolve all of this without sacrificing security and decentralization?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like the short-term solution. I mean, but even given, you know, it gets very complicated quickly. Like, which L2 do you use? And then if you want your users have to be, the users of your dApp have to have the currency of that L2, and then bridging it back and forth. The calculus of how to drive, how to organize a project using an L2 is really complicated, and involves a lot of like involvement of your community of users. And maybe the community of users needs to have like a lot of, because they're probably, you know, eventually going to have like 4 or 5 different L2 currencies just to do transactions with some dApp. Or maybe they pick one, you know, or even like, you know, deploying an NFT, like you don't want to pay $500 or whatever the gas fees are to go on mainnet at like an OpenSea or something, and then there's like a few different flavors of OpenSea. I think there's a Polygon version. I don't think there's a normal L2 or roll-up one, but there are other versions of NFT marketplaces on different NFT platform, on different L2s, but of course they have very little audience. And in fact, in our workshop, there was a NFT example on Starknet. And so, I mean, just taking the NFT example, it's like it's a lot to organize, both on the code side, but also on the user side, probably harder on the user side.
All right. Yeah, so the answer is we'll find out.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, we might have time for a couple questions. So I think to end it, I just want to like get your thoughts on first, if there is someone here or out there who's listening to this talk later, and they want to create a kind of infrastructure or tools for the wider community, maybe as a sort of kind of public good that isn't making any revenue, maybe perhaps even with making revenue, what advice would you give for someone who wants to start something like this?
To start a project that, for a public good project?
Okay, to create tools or infrastructure to help other people in the community to build their projects, whether or not it's for profit or non-profit. Yeah, either way.
Well, I mean, for tooling, I mean, the first question is funding, and it does seem like that's tooling projects are fundable from EF grants or from the ESP program. So that's a first step. I think, and in terms of, I mean, of course, tools in Remix, that's like making a new plugin, and that process is pretty straightforward, especially, you know, if you're a JavaScript developer or TypeScript. And then you can integrate some tool into Remix, or maybe, you know, tools that integrate with other tools like that, or maybe there's something for hard hat, some runner for there. And I'm not sure what to say beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Funding is one very important thing to first make sure you can have. And I think last question for me is if there are any kind of feedback that your users, the developers who are using Remix, have for the product, like how can they reach out to you, and like how kind of responsive, or how do you kind of reply to these kinds of feedback?
Yeah, so the few different ways. One of the most, I mean, the first important one is to subscribe to our Twitter feeds. Often we'll announce when a release is coming. And also we're often looking for beta testers. And so when you're beta testing, you get to know like what the coming features are. You get to know people in the Remix team a little bit, and so then your comments immediately like go into our ears. So that's like, and also you get, we have a little rewards program for our beta testers. We get a badge, basically like a non-transferable NFT on Optimism, and so you can show off that you've helped us on specific release. So that's the first way. Another way is the Gitter chat. We do monitor that, especially for bugs and issues. And you can send us an email at remix@ethereum.org. We'll get that. What else? There's a Discord chat. In fact, maybe I'll put an invite to that Discord chat right here in the chat here, which is right.
I think that would help. And yeah, for those who can't find any of the links shared in the chat in this meetup, we will summarize and we'll try and find the other links that Rob's mentioned, and we'll share it in the Telegram group as well later. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. So we're 1 minute past 9:30. I don't want to like keep people waiting, and especially Rob, who's kindly shared an hour and a half of your time. Yeah, so thanks a lot for joining us and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Also, like I want to like the news section at the beginning was really great. So maybe I'll troll your meetups next month too.
Well, you're very much welcome to. And if you're ever in Malaysia, there's a community of people here who'd love to bring you around. We like to say we are a very, very good destination just for like hanging out and vacationing. So yeah, let us know if you're ever in town.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Talk to y'all. See you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
Rob.
Thank you.